To all the geeks and nerds out there, today I'd like to talk about these guys, the villagers, and why in particular they sometimes take a long time to pick up their workstations, because I've done some research, done some testing, and yeah, found out a few things that I think is worth sharing. So let's hop into it and yeah, let's talk about it. Now before we talk about some details, let's have a quick recap. So here we have a villager, and of course a villager, we can trade with him once he has a profession. And the way we give him a profession is we pick one of these workstation blocks. So these are all the workstation blocks in the game currently, and they all correspond to a different profession. So we pick one at random. So I've got a lectern in my hand, and if I place it down, he will pick it because he can pathfind to it. Now that means that he thinks he can walk towards it. Now I've got him trapped in these blocks at the moment, so he can't actually move, but he thinks he can. And if he can pathfind to it, he'll pick this up. Then if we break it, he'll lose that profession, and we can place it again and he'll pick it up again, no problem. Now he's not picking these ones up here because he can't pathfind to them. There's no blocks he can walk up to get to them. And so that's why he's picking this one right here. Now the reason we want to know about this is because if we check out his trades, so he's currently got this Power 5 book. Now if I break his workstation and place it down again, he'll pick up that profession. And then we click on him again, and you can see he's changed his trades to something else. So this is important because what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to break and place these workstations over and over again until he gets the profession that we want. Now, time of day is important, and he has to be in work time to be able to lose his profession. So when we break it, he needs to be in work time to pick up a new one. So work time is, if you look at a clock, one of these things right here, this yellow thing is the sun, and if it's at a 45-degree angle just over here, that's when work time starts, and work time finishes when it's at a 45-degree angle this way. And if you want to get technical about it, that's from tick 2000 to 9000. All right, so that's some basics. Now, the other thing I want to mention here is that we'll come into it a bit later, is that take a look at how these blocks look. They all have some really cool textures, and you can imagine using these to build something cool. Not necessarily to be useful in terms of villagers, but just be part of your world. They've all got some interesting textures, and that's good for building. So, and also the underneath as well is also important. So let's get into it. Let's look at this great big green sphere and see what this is all about. I'm now inside the sphere, and in the very center we have our test subject. This villager is going to help us out. So the first thing to talk about is the range that a villager can detect a workstation. And surprise, surprise, it's this sphere. And this sphere has a radius of 48 blocks. Now, I just want to demonstrate something. If I go over here, just scoot around here, just to make it easier to see, just look how big this sphere is. This sphere is actually huge. So this one villager can detect any workstation inside this sphere. Now, we spoke about the workstations down there, about their textures, things like that. And quite often, because those textures are so good, people use them for roofs or ceilings or flooring, stuff like that. So you could have quite a lot of workstations just around your world. And because this area is so big, this villager is going to try and can detect it. And that's going to become important later on. So keep that in mind as we look at some things. So let's do a baseline test to start with. So I've got a bunch of command blocks over here just to help me out. So the first thing is we've got one here to make sure we're in work time. So let's click that as we talked about earlier. I've also got these buttons here. Now the villager clock, this is an addition to my logical crafting data pack, and we can turn that on, and that just shows us the current ticks and also the work time, the schedule of the villager currently, the phase that we're currently in. So let's do a baseline test, and let's just place down this workstation in front of him. He can get it straight away. We break it, he loses it straight away. And we can keep doing this, and this is what we want. We want this kind of pace so we can break and check the trades over and over again inside work time. Now, let's do a little test. So over here, we can add a number of blocks. So let's add 25 fletching tables inside the chunk just below him. So there we are, just below him, right, just like that. Now let's try that test again. Let's see if that's had any effect. No, it seems to be pretty quick still. So far, so good. All right. So let's remove those. So for these command blocks, the bottom ones here, this green block, these bottom ones will add blocks, and the corresponding ones above will remove them. So let's go to our 25 fletching tables. Let's remove those. Okay, no problem. Let's do 25 blast furnaces outside of the chunk. So this is a slightly different test. So you can see your chunks by pressing F3 and G. There we go. So this guy is inside this chunk. And these blast furnaces we've added are in a different chunk, but just 25 of them, only 25. So let's see what happens if we place down a workstation right now. Oh dear, that is not instant. Far from instant, in fact. Oh, there we go, he took it. And there we are, 6.5 seconds is how long that took. So what is actually going on here? Well, this villager, when he's unemployed and we place down a workstation, he's trying to work out which workstation he can take. So what he does is he takes all of the workstations that are inside this sphere, and he tries to pathfind to all of them. And once he finds one that he can pathfind to, then that's the one he picks. So for some reason, and I don't know why, I can't dig into the code, this is just from my observations, he seems to have an easier time if the workstations are inside his chunk, as we saw. But if they're outside of his chunk, that seems to take longer. So maybe there's some kind of caching going on. Maybe there's the workstations that are inside his chunk are already loaded up or whatnot. But when they're in a different chunk, he has to do some different searches. So he's trying to pathfind to all of them. Now, obviously, there's only one he can pathfind to, and that's this one he picks. So once he gets to this one, then he picks it. So what happens if we change up the numbers? So there's only 25 there. So let's get rid of those blast furnaces. So 25 blast furnaces. They're out of here. Now let's add a few more. So how about if we just go for 256 composters, but inside the chunk? So what does this do? Let's get rid of that. We're inside work time still. So let's place down this workstation, and he takes it immediately. That is interesting. So that doesn't have any effect either, it seems. So what happens if we have the same number of workstations but outside of the chunk? So let's remove these ones. So the composters are gone. And let's add some smithing tables, 256. Outside of the chunk. So this is the same number but outside, just so you can see. There we go. So let's break this workstation and let's see if you can pick this one up. Oh dear, oh dear. This is going to be a similar story, I fear. So that took just over 1.5 minutes to find his workstation. So that is not all that good. So we're definitely now in the realms of this not being very palatable when it comes to recycling workstations. We don't want to wait a minute and a half every time we break a workstation. But let's do one more test. So let's break this workstation. Let's get rid of those smithing tables. So on the smithing tables, and we do this. So they are gone. Let's also put it back to work time, because now we're outside of work time. We've waited so long. So we do that. Now then, the next test I want to do is with 512. Now, the first one is 512 cauldrons inside the chunk. There they all are. And let's see how long this takes. So you might be interested or surprised by these results. So let's plot this down. And this is not instant, so let's see how long this one takes. So there we go, that was 3 minutes. 3 minutes to find a workstation. So that is not all that good. So let's do the last part of this test. So let's remove those cauldrons. So that's that button right there. There they go. And we've got some grindstones, 512 to the same number. Let's place those, and they're going to be outside of the chunk. They are over here, just for good measure. Let's make sure that's correct. There we go. So let's place down. We're still in work time. In fact, we're getting towards the end. Let's just reset that as well, just to make sure. Okay, so let's place this one down and see how long this takes. He's still going, but as he does, I just wanted to show you one thing. So if I hit the F3 button, we get this lagometer down in the right hand side, and you can see we're still at 0 milliseconds. So this is not causing any kind of lag. So we're all good on that front. But yeah, it just takes a long time. So let's hold out and see how much longer we got to wait. 7 minutes and 7 seconds. So that is quite a big difference. So when we had the same number there, the 500 odd inside the chunk, that was only 3 minutes. So more than double if these workstations are outside the chunk that the village is in. So what does all this mean? And what should you do? And should you care, I guess, as well? So first of all, this is an issue. So if you're trying to cycle your workstations and you're seeing there's a delay in the time that the village is picking it up, then the chances are you have enough workstations around either inside the chunk that they're in or outside to have an effect. And it obviously depends on how many you have. So the more you have, the more the delay is going to be. And it also depends if those workstations are inside this chunk or outside of it. And is it a real thing? Is it something you have to worry about? Well, I think it is, because I had this exact same problem in my own world. So in my single player world, I have a base in a Death Star, and the ceiling of the room just below where I have my villager cycling was actually made of cauldrons, because the underside of a cauldron looks pretty cool. And I had about 2,000 cauldrons, and that caused my villagers to take about 11 minutes to find their workstation. So that it's definitely an issue if you're not aware of it. So what can you do? So if you are serious having this problem at the moment, then I guess you've either got two options. Either you need to remove the workstations, or you need to move the villager to a different location when you're doing this cycling of the workstation. So neither of those two are very palatable, I guess, depending on your situation. But at least you know now that there is an issue, and the issue is caused by a lot of workstations around around your area of your villager. And look how big this area is. We could have, if I take off my my chunks again, look how big this area is. So any workstations in here are going to affect the time it takes for a villager to find the workstation. And again, because he's trying to pathfind, he's trying to work out which ones he can pick, because obviously villagers walk around, they move, and so they have to constantly try and find workstations if they don't have one. And yeah, so he's going to try and pathfind to all of these workstations, and that just takes time. So that is the issue. And yeah, so what maybe can we do about this? Well, we could maybe file a bug with Mojang and say, you know, this is not all that great. And maybe what Mojang should do is, rather than trying to pathfind to every single block, and only when they finds one that it can pathfind does it pick one, maybe sort all of these in order for which ones are closest to the villager, because I imagine most of the time it makes most sense for the workstation closest to the villager to be the one it picks. So maybe take all of these workstations, sort them by the distance to the villager, and start with the first one, in which case it will be this one. And if you can pathfind it straight away, then pick it. So that may, in that case, it wouldn't have to look for any of these other ones. That would definitely be an improvement to the algorithm. But I think if anyone who is able to get into the source code and kind of do some digging and seeing exactly how this algorithm works, that might be useful for helping us out. So there we go. Not so good news, but at least now we know what the issue might be and how we can at least address it slightly. So there we have it. There is a roundup of why your villagers take a long time to cycle through their workstations. Look at this guy following me as I move around. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, then please hit the like button. And of course, any comments or suggestions, get it in the comments section. And I will get this world as a world download, so there'll be a link in the description if you want to try this out for yourself. And yeah, let me know if you're having this problem as well, then let me know in the comments. Maybe we'll get a bug report going and see if we get any traction on that front. But anyway, until next time, I will see you later.